hello, welcome and all that stuff. More still wine today. This is another from Davenport, the third of those three that I bought recently. And this is the most recent vintage and another vineyard that is new to me from this producer. This is Horsmonden. Is that right? Horsmonden is the name of the vineyard and it's a 2023 vintage. Davenport's winery and sort of headquarters are near Rotherfield somewhere and quite close to the Kent border. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of their estate extends over into Kent. And once again, I'm using a corkscrew for this because I don't know if you can get a sense for that from there. Compared to, for example, a Burgundy bottle, the sort of ratio of the cork diameter to the width of the glass there, there's a lot of cork. I mean, the cork is probably just a normal size, but it seems like, to me, quite a thin bottle, if that makes sense. The glass is quite thin. And as now endlessly and tediously recounted, I did once have an issue where I managed to crack the neck of one of these using wine prongs. Thought it might be interesting to be a bit more scientific about this and actually weigh a couple of bottles for comparison. So here is another bottle of that Davenport Horsmonden Pinot Noir from 2023, and to compare against that I have some good old Gevrey Chambertin. This is from Rossignol Trappé. I think this is a typical sort of bottle weight. So let's try the Davenport first. Turn the scales on. Probably not going to be able to read that number very well on the camera, but I will read it out to you. So we have, I think, 1,166 grams. So that's 1.16 kilos that bottle weighs. I should say the quantity of liquid inside is the same. They're both 75 centilitres. Now the Gevrey Chambertin, classic Burgundy, 1,304 grams. So there's a good 140 grams of difference between the weight of those two bottles. And I think that vindicates my theory that these Davenport Pinot Noir bottles are relatively thin glass compared to a typical Burgundy. I should provide some caveats for this tasting. First of all, my back garden smells bad. Autumn has definitely arrived and there's a sort of slight smell of rotting vegetable matter. Also, I have a bit of a cold. I don't know if you can hear. I'm a little bit croaky. I've got a bit of a, I don't know, sore throat or something. This is probably not going to be the best assessment, but wow. One thing that is working, I think, is my eyesight, just still. That is very light and very pale, isn't it? And I often assess Pinot Noirs mostly from Burgundy and end up saying somewhere in the middle. That is definitely not somewhere in the middle. On the spectrum of colours you get out of Pinot Noir, this is very, very light, very pale. So if I can get round the background aroma, which isn't particularly pleasant in my back garden of something rotting. Let's see what this is like. First nose before any swirling, some really light, soft, delicate fruit there. I think we're talking about possibly strawberries. Normally when it's dainty, I'm tempted to say wild strawberries. And it is giving me a sense of something that's really pale, really light, really dainty. There is something in amongst that. Possibly it's a little bit like that typical menthol thing you get from youthful Pinot Noir and all seems to come from England. But also goes a little bit beyond that to sort of something slightly reminiscent of kind of, I don't know, herbal cough sweets or something like that. Perhaps I'm just projecting because that's what I need at this current state of my throat. Is there a brand called something like Bateman's or something? You know, sort of old-fashioned cough sweet that isn't just a whole bunch of chemicals. It's made with some herbs, more sort of natural remedy. It's got a sort of sense of that about it, which is not actually unpleasant. I mean, that may sound weird, but not unpleasant. Let's see if swirling makes much of a difference. I suspect it's not going to have a huge impact. Oh, I don't know. I mean, perhaps there's a little bit of ever so slight concentration of that red berry fruit character now. There is something else there that I think I'm missing here. I'm missing part of the description that I recognise, but I can't quite come up with a word for. But yeah. Anyway, no surprises in terms of the fruit character. It's obviously not going to be thick, dense cherry with that sort of a colour, is it? It's all very light and delicate. Something a little bit floral there, maybe. I forgot to mention, it's a relatively newly planted vineyard. I think they only established it in 2016. So at this harvest, it was only 7 years old, which is relatively new for a vineyard. They do take quite a while to bed in, don't they? And that possibly has some impact on this sort of lighter style. I think this is just because it's light extraction and perhaps it was a not particularly hot year. I don't remember what the weather was like in 2023. Overall summary so far, light. On the palate, yeah, light. Really light. But it's kind of nice in a way. There's something sort of pleasant about that. I think I read on the back as well that it spent 10 months in oak barrels, and I'm really not getting much of a sense of woodiness there. It's very, very gentle, delicate and light. I'm going to have to stop using that word. Going to have to find some better synonyms. You get the idea. And there is fruit character there, but again, strawberry. I think we're talking more sort of berry fruit, strawberry, and very delicate, soft, subtle. It's the ABV quite low on this as well. It's 11%, which is, it's on the low side for most red Burgundy, for example. 13-ish, isn't it? So it's a little bit on the low side there, but not incomparable to, say, a sparkling wine can often be around that kind of point. It does give a sense of something that isn't particularly vinous in a way. It isn't boozy. I'm not getting much of a sensation of booze from that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's, again, light, delicate, nuanced, subtle. How many synonyms can I come up with? This might be quite nice as a summer wine, a summer red wine. The seasons, as alluded to from the smell of rotting vegetable matter I mentioned in my garden, the seasons definitely feels like it's starting to change. The last couple of days, we're past the midpoint of September, past the equinox. In fact, that was earlier this week. Definitely well into autumn by every possible measure now, and it is starting to feel a little bit chillier. I think I might have enjoyed this more at the start of the month when there was still occasional bursts of warm weather. So yeah, it's okay. It's made in a different style, and they're upfront about that on the label, and I'm sure on the marketing blurb on the website. So it is very light. I think you've got the message by now, haven't you? I think of the three I've tried from this most recent batch, I personally preferred the other two, but this is just a different style. It would be unfair to sort of, it's a bit apples and oranges, strawberries and cherries, perhaps. Have I said enough? Light. I think you get the idea, don't you? Pleasant in its own way, quite a different style of wine to the other two, I think. I'll stop talking now. I think I've run out of anything useful to say. I'm just going to end up saying light again, aren't I? Cheers.